to wait till for them to change, to keep loving harder, softer, quieter, louder, until they finally see your worth. But deep down, you know the truth. They already saw it and still chose to ignore it. This video isn't here to comfort your illusions. It's here to end them. Because the moment you stop begging to be seen is the moment you become unforgettable. Not when you cry, not when you break, not when you chase, but when you disappear, evolve, and never return as the version they used to know. I'm not here to tell you to move on, like it's a checklist. I'm here to rip the mask off the truth you've been avoiding. They're not sorry. They don't feel your pain, but they will feel your silence. They will feel your growth. They will cry when it's too late. And when they do, it won't be your loss, it'll be theirs. So don't click away. Don't skip. Don't scroll to the next thing that numbs you out. Because in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why the most powerful thing you'll ever do isn't to fight for them, it's to finally choose you. This isn't a speech, it's your wake-up call. And if you're still here by the end, you won't just be watching a video, you'll be walking away as someone they'll never get to hurt again. You don't prove your value by showing up more than they do. You don't prove it by waiting for them to respond, by double texting, by forgiving things they never apologized for. That's not proof of love. That's evidence of conditioning. You've been taught, consciously or unconsciously, that if you give more, they'll finally see you. That if you stick around long enough, they'll wake up one day and realize what they have. That if you just love them harder, they'll change. But let me ask you this. If someone can only see your worth once you've drained yourself to prove it, did they ever really see it? Because the truth is, people don't recognize value when it's constantly available. They recognize it when it's removed. You've been taught to prove your worth through presence, through effort, through consistency. But real value, lasting value, is often felt through absence. When someone no longer has access to your energy, when they wake up and your name isn't in their inbox, when they go to their notifications and your likes aren't there, when they open their messages and the space where you used to live is now silent, that's when the impact lands. Because you weren't just someone who texted back fast. You weren't just someone who showed up. You were their safety net, their ego boost, their "I'm not alone" reassurance. And now, they've lost that, not because you played games, but because you finally stopped playing yourself. See, there's a psychology to detachment. People often take for granted what's guaranteed. It's not even malicious. It's human. If you always show up, they assume you always will. If you're always understanding, they assume you'll always forgive. That's not love. That's complacency disguised as comfort. When you remove yourself even once from a place where you were never truly valued, something remarkable happens. The silence becomes louder than anything you've ever said. And here's the twist: when you disappear, it's not just you they lose. It's the version of themselves that felt safe because you loved them. They lose the emotional cushion, the unconditional audience, the person who saw the good in them when no one else did. And that kind of loss, it doesn't show up immediately. It creeps in slowly. When they're scrolling through old messages at 2 a.m., when someone new doesn't laugh at their jokes the way you did, when they realize no one texts, "Did you eat today?" without expecting something in return, that's when they cry for you. Not when you're trying to convince them you matter, but when you finally act like you do. Because when you stop chasing, you start changing. When you stop explaining, you stop proving, you start becoming. This is what I need you to understand. Your value doesn't live in your effort. It lives in your presence, and more importantly, your willingness to withdraw it. Not to punish them, but to protect you. You don't need to scream block or blast them online. That's noise. The most powerful move is quiet evolution. Growth that doesn't need a press release. A glow up that doesn't ask for applause. That's the kind of disappearance they remember forever. It's not revenge. It's reclamation. So when I say, Do it once and he'll cry for you. I'm not talking about a petty flex. I'm talking about reclaiming your energy with such certainty that they feel your absence like gravity. And when he finally realizes what he had, he won't be texting you, he'll be talking to your ghost. The version of you he'll never have again. Because by the time they cry, you'll have outgrown the need to be cried over. Here's what I want you to take with you. And really let it land. You don't prove your worth by showing up harder. You prove it by walking away when you're no longer seen. And when you do that, even just once, they'll feel the weight of what they lost. Not because you were loud, but because your silence finally spoke the truth they refused to hear. We live in a world that has taught you to believe that the louder you are, the more likely someone will hear you. That if you cry louder, scream louder, express how much you care more dramatically, they'll finally get it. They'll finally listen. They'll finally love you right. But the truth is, it doesn't work like that. Not with someone who only values control. Not with someone who's more comfortable seeing you chase than actually meeting you where you are. And here's the irony. It's not your tears that shake them. It's not your pleading. It's not your "why need to talk" texts. It's not the paragraphs you've rewritten 20 times, trying to say the right thing in the most digestible, loving way possible. It's your silence. Silence is not just the absence of noise, it's the presence of power. When you're constantly explaining yourself, constantly reaching out, constantly trying to make them understand how they hurt you, what you're really doing is trying to control the narrative. You're trying to get them to finally validate your experience, and it makes sense. You're human. You want closure. You want clarity. But most people don't give you closure, not because they can't, but because giving you closure would mean admitting what they did. It would mean owning the truth. And that kind of honesty, that requires emotional maturity. Most aren't willing to go there. So you end up exhausting yourself in conversations that go in circles, trying to make someone feel your pain, and it never lands. But the moment you stop speaking, that's when they finally hear you. There's a psychology behind this. As long as you're responding, even negatively, they still have your attention. They still have emotional access. And as long as they have that, they don't need to change, because somewhere deep down they know you're still there. But when you go silent, genuinely silent, not in anger, not to manipulate, but because you've genuinely outgrown the need to be heard by them, that's when the discomfort starts. Suddenly, the dopamine hit they got from seeing your name pop up disappears. The comfort of knowing you'll always reach out, always check in, always try again. Gone. And they're left with the one voice they've been running from the entire time, their own. That silence creates a space they can't fill. Not with other people, not with distractions, not with fake confidence. Because you weren't just noise in their life, you were connection. And now they're alone with their ego, the same ego that told them you'd never leave. This is the moment that separates the ones who valued you from the ones who only valued your attention. The ones who only cared about being wanted will collapse in your silence. The ones who truly care will step up in it. Because silence exposes everything. You don't need to chase clarity. You don't need to text them one last time. You don't need to write the perfect goodbye. Your absence is the goodbye. And trust me, it's louder than anything you could say. In fact, when you stay silent, you shift the emotional responsibility back where it belongs. They now have to sit with the consequences of their actions without your emotional labor softening the blow. They have to feel it. And that's when they cry. Not because you begged, not because you posted something sad they related to, but because you finally stopped feeding the connection and they realized the relationship was never real without your effort. Let that land for a second. If something collapses without your constant energy, it was never mutual, it was maintenance. You were the foundation. You were the glue. So now, stop apologizing for going quiet. Stop feeling guilty for pulling back your energy. Stop thinking silence is weakness. It's not. It's the moment you go from reaction to self-respect, because when you're no longer trying to fix it, prove it, save it. You're finally saving yourself. You don't need to speak to be heard. You don't need to explain to be understood. You just need to walk away in a way that says, I loved you, but I love my peace more. And when you do that, really do it even just once, he'll cry, not for what he lost, but for realizing he never saw it when it was right in front of him. There's this idea we've all been fed, that healing has to be loud, that you have to prove to the world, especially to them, that you've moved on. You start posting more, showing up more, proving that you're fine. But if you really look deeper, a lot of that noise is still about them. It's still reaction. It's still, look at me, what you lost. But the real transformation, the kind that makes them feel your absence in their bones, it's quiet. It's internal. And it doesn't happen through proving anything to them. It happens when you stop trying to prove anything at all. Because here's the truth that most people never realize until it's too late. The most powerful revenge is a life that no longer includes them. Not a life lived in spite of them. Not a life lived to show them. But a life that has outgrown them so completely, they're not even in the frame anymore. That's the version of you they never imagined. The version that doesn't need them to see. The version that's so focused on building emotionally, mentally, spiritually, that their opinion, their presence, their validation doesn't even register. And here's where it gets interesting. Most people expect you to break. They expect you to stay stuck in the pain. They expect you to keep orbiting around their approval. So when you go quiet and then begin to rise not performatively, but genuinely, it creates a shift in the power dynamic they never saw coming. They go from being the center of your world to being a distant memory in a chapter you've already closed. But let's be clear. This isn't about pretending to be okay. This is about actually doing the work. Facing yourself. Sitting with your triggers. Understanding your patterns. Rebuilding your confidence not from external feedback, but from the simple knowing, I made it through something I once thought would break me. It's in that quiet rebuilding. Those moments when you choose self-respect over old habits, when you invest in yourself instead of chasing clarity from them, that's where the glow up begins. And when I say glow up, I'm not just talking about looks. I'm talking about energy boundaries, self-possession, that unshakable sense of peace that can't be faked. The kind of peace that makes people stop and think, what happened to her? And the answer is she finally came home to herself. And that's what they cry over. Not just that you're gone, but that you didn't just move on, you evolved. That they stayed the same while you became everything they were too blind to appreciate. It's not about bitterness. It's not about revenge. It's about becoming so full of your own life, your own purpose, your own light, that they can no longer recognize the version of you they once controlled. And here's where the psychology really cuts deep. People often regret not because they lost you, but because they lost how they felt when you were around. You gave them emotional safety, a mirror that reflected back the best parts of themselves. You gave them space to be seen, even when they couldn't see you. And when you walk away, that mirror disappears. Now they're left with themselves. No reflection, no validation, no emotional oxygen from you. And that emptiness, that's what haunts them. Because while you were growing, they were gambling. They bet that you'd always stay. They bet that they could come and go and you'd always be there. But what they never calculated was that you might finally remember who the hell you are. And that version of you, she doesn't chase, she doesn't explain. She doesn't wait, she builds, she glows, she lives. And now he's on the outside, watching it all happen, knowing he can't reach you anymore, not because you blocked him, but because you healed beyond him. So no, you don't need to scream, post, or prove. The version of you that they cry for is the one who no longer seeks to be seen by them at all. And if you take nothing else from this, take this. The moment you stop proving your worth and start living it, they feel the loss more than any words could ever deliver. because healing in silence and thriving without them is the loudest thing they'll ever hear. There's a moment in every healing